So there you go. You know, we can take questions. And don't know if you've got questions, but we can take questions. But there's a lot of things that aren't in the movie, of course, that we learned. But I'm hoping I can do something here.
Are you a fan of film noir?
Well, we do like film. Whoops.
Yes.
What's the thing that you most wish you could have gotten into film?
Well, we might have different opinions about that. I think one thing we did have in for quite a long time, but it ended up not sitting that well, was there is a long history of shipwrecks along the Big Sur coast in the fog, and there are some great shipwreck stories. And we did have a shipwreck section in there. We found out a lot about a particular schooner called the Thomas L. Wand that crashed off of Pfeiffer Point, and one of Adelaide's brothers, this was actually after Adelaide died, it was a few years later, and one of her brothers and her nephew actually built bonfires on the beach that helped the crewmen get to shore, and they were, and you know, the newspaper had these long and really dramatic stories about getting down to where the shipwreck was, and then they all had a big party, and then turned out that the captain had been in about 6 different shipwrecks. So it wasn't that big a deal to him. He didn't want all of the lumber that he was hauling to be hauled off by scavengers and salvagers and stuff. So he had to stay with the ship, and so, but it didn't. It kind of detracted from the filming. But yeah, that I would have liked to be able to talk about shipwrecks.
What happened to the 5 children?
Yeah. Well, actually, you know, the 5 children, there were 2 older ones, 2 boys who were in high school at the time. They came up to Monterey to go to high school, and then a sister in the middle, and the 2 youngest boys were really small. And they went and lived with an aunt in Monterey. They eventually came back and lived with Sam. They have, you know, there are great stories about what a great life they had. The 2 younger ones, Frank and Walter, if you know anything about Big Sur history, they were like the big men of Big Sur. They started the fire volunteers, and they were at the Grange, and they carried on their father's tradition. He was that way himself, you know, larger than life, built a lot of cabins and trails and roads, and he developed the system that they, you know, used to get the tan bark from the base of the cliffs up to Monterey by lashing together logs as a raft. I mean, it's like a, you know, Paul Bunyan or something. But the kids all, they did okay. You know, they thrived. The one that we know is Sylvia, who's the granddaughter, and you know, I guess like any family, there are stories and disputes, but I mean, interestingly, I don't know if we want to.
We'll just touch on this because we talked to Sylvia about the story, because the story mostly is Sam Trotter's a legend, period. Gold-crowned king of the heap, right? And when we were going through looking for a human kind of emotional story about the fog, because, you know, when you're in the fog down there a lot, it's an emotional thing. When you're in that fog, it's kind of creepy, to put it bluntly. It can be nice, but it's also just kind of overwhelming. So we wanted a human story, and when we found this story in the newspaper, it kind of unfolds as you see it in the movie, where you're just turning pages and
we were in the Monterey Public Library just looking at old newspapers thinking, oh, they're thinking shipwrecks, but, you know, what are some interesting stories? And this one just, I don't know if you've, you know, newspapers from the time are just tiny little columns, and the headlines that you saw, you know, auto crashes into sea, was just huge. This was a big story.
Bigger than most headlines. Like if the president was like, this is a you know, auto plunges into sea right across the top.
I mean, we're looking through and thinking, well, what happened?
Because he was a well-known person. He was a well-known person, and what happens is this story happens, and then it just fades away, to the point where the younger sons Sylvia, who had also found this story when we were talking to her, she brought one of the youngest sons to
Her uncle. Yeah.
her uncle, right? Oh, right, her uncle to the library to show him the story, and he just cried because
He didn't know.
he didn't know the story.
I mean, and that's his mom.
Not only that, now that we're here, we weren't supposed to be here yet, but he took us here. You know, there are lots of books. There are lots of books on Big Sur. Well, there's Kerouac's book, but that's got nothing to do with us. But there's the Big Sur history book. There's the, let's see, the Big Sur A Battle for the Wilderness book, Big Sur Woman book. And there's articles in the Big Sur newspaper all about the Trotters.
The legend of
And
Sam
about
Trotter.
Legend of Sam Trotter. But guess what? Nothing about this story.
The most that you find out about Adelaide is he had a wife and she died.
It's weird.
So it's a little.
And, you know, we can't really say everything we talked to Sylvia about, but Sylvia has an opinion, let me put it that way.
And actually, Sylvia would have been here tonight, but they had already scheduled a vacation, so that she would like to have been.
Yeah. But it's quite a story, we think, anyway.
So what was Sam Trotter's motive for disappearing?
His excuse.
You know, that you can speculate, and the family has speculated, I guess, and people have different opinions. And you know, his story was that he just.
But you know, this is where history and science, I have problems. Because when I go to the newspaper, I see a newspaper version of the story. Then I talk to Sylvia and I hear a Sylvia version of the story. And now we're 100 years away from the story. What story do we tell? Now you've seen this story, you guys kind of believe it, but this was Mary and I telling this story, do you know what I mean? And we stuck right with the newspapers. There's nothing in the movie that isn't in the newspapers. How true is that?
Including his version of the story.
Including his version
But
of
you
the
know,
story.
he was tracked down by, he actually had a subscription to the Monterey paper. And he was kind of following what's going on back home. And through various means, the newspaper found out that he was up in Shasta County and kind of went and tracked him down.
That's Trotter.
Yeah, well, he used
Or he
a
changed his
different
name?
name, but he used his father's middle name. It was, I can't remember, we found it somewhere, but it was him. And
He was in debt. He was in debt. He was in debt.
and apparently sort of always in debt, and always the grand schemes and the big ideas and the, but you know.
And he had 5 kids. And he was living in Big Sur. And the more we learned about Big Sur, it is really a landlocked, intense place. The Esalen there were, you know, the last kind of cultural holdouts of that kind of early peopling of California. And it's partly or primarily due to that terrain that they're kind of locked in there. And to find that out, there's a whole, you know, you asked what else could we put in? Well, there's lots of things. The whole reason people guess that the Esalen were trapped in there is due to their language. So you don't know much about the Esalen, but you do know some of the Esalen culture, but not much, to be honest. Every time we looked at it, it was kind of a fabrication, to be honest with you. And we could never really put it in there. We wanted to, but it was not comfortable for us. Not as hard as we wanted it to be. But there are 100 Esalen words that were pretty rock solid as Esalen. And the linguistics elements to California being peopled, linguists, what's her name, Dr. Callahan from Ohio State, we talked to her about it because she's kind of an expert in Proto-Utean grammar, and she told us that what they do is they work out if this group of people are saying certain words and this group of people are saying certain words, you can figure out who came first and who came second.
Because the words, as one culture went to over another, they would sort of supplant the original language, and you can kind of.
And we hit on them because we were interested in the fog. And what happens is you find out of these 100 words, one of them is cloud and one of them is fog. And when you research science for fog, the first thing you learn is that fog is defined by human beings as not being able to be seen. You can't see something 1,000 meters away, a kilometer away. That makes it officially fog. And the second thing you learn is fog is a cloud touching the ground. Fog is a cloud touching the ground. And then we looked at these 100 words from the Esalen. One was cloud, which is, do you have the thing?
I don't know what to do with it.
Well, maybe I
Oh,
put
no,
it.
here it is.
One cloud is
Next.
Mex. Mex. And fog is Makea.
We don't really
I don't know how to pronounce it.
pronunciation, so there you go.
And we talked to Dr. Catherine Callahan from Ohio State about these words, and she says, you know, fog is a good translation, but really it's more cloud, fog, but she says it's more like cloud and cloudlet. So it's kind of like they knew exactly what they were seeing when they saw fog, you know, that it was kind of this little low cloud, which we thought was pretty interesting. And another word they had was for a night spirit, Tuhumas Hakopa. I don't know how to read it. That's my guess. Which is this night spirit that comes in the evening and then leaves in the morning. And our brains are going, oh, this is interesting, right? Coming in the rolling in the evening and leaving. And then we find now this one's a little bit shaky, but Little Bear, a descendant from the Esalen, describes the ventana as the window from which the spirits journey to the western island of the dead. So you die, and then your spirit goes off into the ocean to the western island of the dead. And we're kind of, we say it, but you know, you create these legends, I guess, and that's what we did, but we didn't put it in the movie. This Tuhumas Hakopa feels like the fog coming in, this night spirit. And to us, that felt like the people's dead spirits come in. It's kind of a creepy thing that comes in and out. And you know, it's one of those things that
But you know, if you're down there and it's the evening and it's foggy, you kind of think, wow,
Yeah.
it's around here. You know, you really do sort of get that very close, claustrophobic kind of creepy feeling.
yeah.
So I missed that last little bit about the iodine and the fog making the tree warden like.
Right.
That went by just a little
Yeah.
fast. I couldn't.
Good. Well, yes. Here is originally we when we looked into the science, right? We're trying to find out all about the science of the fog, and we came across these very separate studies, and as we figured these things out, we thought, you know, really what's happening is the kelp and the fog and the redwoods are really connected.
It's like you learn about this kelp thing, where the kelp collects iodine from the seawater in its cells, and then at low tide, when it's most susceptible to the sun beating on it, it releases it into the air, creating, when the sunlight hits the iodine particle, it turns into iodide, and then that particle collects the water vapor on it and essentially intensifies the fog layer, putting a reflective protection
Sort of
over the low.
Over the kelp at low
Kelp.
tide.
That's science one, which, you know, for me was good enough. That kind of blew my mind right there. But then we said, and also the water from the fog, you know, is given to the redwood forest. And so we put these two things together personally,
But
connecting the kelp forest to the redwood forest. And we've never read that or seen that, or no one's ever said it, but it's there. And for us, that's, you know, very poetic, very nice idea.
Steve wants to put it on a mug.
Kelp forest, the red forest. And then we find, as we keep doing our research, we find that you know, the redwood forest has organic material that goes down and feeds the kelp.
And this is the least studied, although there's more and more. There's a lot of evidence about iodine and kelp and fog, and fog and redwoods. That's, you know, but there's actually
Not as much about the nutrients.
not as much
coming
about the
down.
nutrients. There's an ecologist here in Santa Cruz actually with Noah. She would also have liked to be here, but she's in Seattle.
Melissa
She's in Seattle doing her research, and Melissa Foley.
Foley, yeah.
And she spent some time down in Big Sur trying to really figure out how the redwood material ends up in being used by the kelp, the nutrients being broken down and used by the kelp. And she wasn't able to prove everything that she was looking for, probably because the weather was so bad. They had a hard time collecting data. But it's the kind of thing she does up and down the coast. She's really interested in this crossing of boundaries between habitats, so that when you're on the shoreline, you're really talking about two really different habitats that clearly interconnect, but there hasn't been a lot of work done to figure out exactly how. But there is, she's
doing it, and
just recently, like 2015, since we made the film.
People are now studying this idea of fog being different than rain. And so they're now studying the various chemicals in fog that make it to the redwood forest and give it something else.
So we were asking her about it, and she said, yeah, there's this recent research about that the fog is not just bringing moisture, it's also bringing nutrients and nitrogen into the forest. And we said, well, that's really interesting, because we were, thinking about the iodine. And she said, yeah, I don't know if anybody studied the iodine, but it kind of makes sense. So we thought, originally in one version of the film, we kind of alluded to this forest cycle, but we didn't really push it, basically because we didn't think that the science was quite strong enough. And we showed the film to some marine biologists who said, gosh, that redwood forest thing's great. You really have to have more of that. And we said, oh, yeah. And they said, no, put it in there and then explain yourself. So, because we really, the forest cycle is a fun.
But wasn't there something at the end about the fact that...
Oh, at the very end. Well, and that's the other
this is the thing.
Yes,
that was too tempting. We had to put it at the end.
Iodine in the redwood forest. In redwood
wood.
trees,
iodine in wood
is a natural pesticide. So,
I just had to put that in.
Yeah, I mean, there's no evidence that the iodine in redwood trees comes from the kelp through the fog.
But there is a lot of research, I think it's in Denmark for some reason, where they do a lot of research on the iodine in wood and its preservation.
What is the potential impact of the California drought on fog?
Well, the drought on fog.
And iodine and all of its features.
I'm going to, we invited Dr. William Blyer from NOAA to answer that question. He's not here.
He's actually
all I can say is, you know what my feeling is it has to do something with, heating up the valley or something like that, I think. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go on a strong I don't know on that one.
Yeah.
I wish I did.
Well, that can be answered because, what's the observation? We've had drought for the last several years, and we have data on the fog correlate. Take the answer.
Yeah, data on the fog is not as clear cut as most people might think. But yeah,
But you mentioned correlation, and if you have a map of the world up and you put the giant kelp beds around the world, and then you have a map of the fog-prone areas and you put them together, they match. Now, correlation, not causation, we don't know, but you know what vote we say, right? But it's a wonderful map.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to put that in either just because of that correlation, causation stuff. Yep.
I just wanted to compliment you on the film. I thought it was a great way of combining art and science and storytelling. It was really engaging.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we are strong believers in art and science, and
that they have something to say to each other. And I'll tell you how this comes to be is we have other lives, of course, citizen science, right? And we look at each other and we say, this thing, we're going to do it our way, period. And we're not going to do it any other way. It's kind of like a little breathing space where we get to do it our way. I hope you guys like it. If you don't, too bad, kind of thing. And it's really, I think I would like to tell my 17-year-old son that, but I think he's doing that already.
Doing his own thing.
Yeah.
So I really like the graphics that you put in there, the sticker in the window looking out.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, and all of those are all right from the newspaper. Actually, all of the type on are all actually from the headlines in the paper. Everything that's in the
that's being said about Sam Trotter, almost everything, except for a few prepositional phrases here and there, is coming from the newspaper articles.
And you put your camera in your time machine, went back to watch the car going over the that was really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you where there's a whole movie is the shipping up along the coast, down along the coast with those schooners. There's just a whole movie there. It's just a fascinating thing. Notley's Landing is one of those weird places down in Big Sur. When you drive by, you can see it. You can still see the Trotter house there. It's a red house that's horizontal. You'll see it when you drive down there.
It's actually that house. It's just
that is the house.
But there's a lot.
You look across, and Notley's Landing's on the other side. And when you read about Notley's Landing, you know it's just Crazyville. And poor Adelaide's living there. It's bars. It's men who are loggers. It's dance halls. It's what you could imagine. It's kind of.
It's really the Wild West.
It really is, and they had their own coins. And I found one. You want to look at it? This is like Notley's Landing's coin. You want to look at it? Because they minted their own coins for buying beer and stuff when you went to their halls. So you were being paid in their thing. And we found that. I found that in. I did quite a bit of work to find it, but I found it.
Look at it. What's it made out of?
Looks like some kind of cheap tin of some kind. I don't know. Not much. Not much. But you know, when you read about Notley's Landing, I almost can't believe people did what they did. Mary was mentioning the sea wreck, and then the newspaper reporters took 2.5 days to get to where the wreck was, to get to where the people were down on the beach, because the road was so unbelievable.
Which you can, I mean, if you drive there now, it's you know, it's a tricky little drive. But and you can imagine without a road.
We were going to show the slide, but you guys jumped to it already.
Oh yeah.
You probably can't see it, but this is a famous person. I forget what his name is. This is Colorado Canyon. That road right there. He's coming out. Most of these guys are building the trails that end up being the roads, you know. And he's coming out, and there are other pictures of this guy. God, what is this guy's name? I forget. Anyway, the mules and all of that. And you know, they look quite the picture.
Mountain man.
And we would go down there, we'd spend all day in film and come home and, ooh, we have a tick. Oh my God, you know, oh my God, we got a tick. Oh God, everybody stop. And these guys were just clearly, you know, Tickville. And you know, it's just amazing what they do. But you know, Adelaide's story is something else. We find it we do call it a tragedy, and we don't like to smile too much when we talk about it. Poor thing is our comment. But she has this whole family, and it's not all of the stories are very fun. You know, it's hard living. It's not romantic living at all.
And you have to think, if you had chosen any family to look at, there would be, you know, life was hard, and you could kind of see why Sam might say, I think I'm just going to keep walking that way and see if I can find something better, or who knows.
But he's not a.
But
If Sylvia were here, she would tell you lovely stories that we can't tell them, really. We don't feel right telling them. But we can tell you about Mary Ellen, her older sister.
So Adelaide's the youngest child of Michael and Barbara Pfeiffer, who were, you know, original homesteaders in Big Sur. She was born in Big Sur.
French, they're
Lived
French.
her whole, Barbara, I forget her. Anyway, and one of her sisters, who isn't on there, is Julia Pfeiffer Burns. So on the one hand, we've got Julia Pfeiffer Burns, a state park, lived a long, happy life and did great things. And on the other hand, her sister Mary Ellen, who at the age of 19 was left alone when some of the parents had to go away to, anyway, was attacked in her home. And she had a breakdown, she had a child, she was sent away to the insane asylum.
She was raped.
She was.
Right.
And
same insane asylum.
yeah.
St. Agnes.
She came back, she got married, she subsequently had 3
To
more
Danny.
children, to Alvin, Danny, and then one morning drank some strychnine and killed herself.
Wow.
And Alvin Danny proceeded the next year to marry her sister, another of Adelaide's sisters. So we talked to, and there's this was reported in the newspaper, and we found that, and talked to Sylvia about it a little bit, and there's some question in the family about, if you talk to the Danny side, it's one story, and you talk to the Pfeiffer side, it's another version, and, did he always love the sister and, make Mary Ellen's life miserable, and, so the family had a lot of
Drama.
And just a
Drama.
tough
Yeah.
time in a tough area.
Yeah. And
There's
the
a-
child, actually, of that circumstance was raised in a convent, grew up to be a nun, lived to the age of, 98 or something, and came to Pfeiffer family reunions in Big Sur in
So
the
it's-
70s. So, go figure.
Big Sur.
But it is
Yeah.
Big Sur, and it's bizarre. And
Yeah.
one of the things I learned is that when you get an overdose of iodine, you get depression. It's one of the symptoms of an overdose of iodine. Just saying. And not finally, but Sam Trotter comes to the West Coast from the Midwest.
Missouri, I think.
And there are stories of why he came here, and it's interesting why he came here. There's a kind of pattern, and so he comes here, and he hooks up with Notley, and they together start logging in Notley's Landing in that area, and Notley puts together the Notley's Landing town and everything.
Yeah, the two brothers.
And then Notley's Landing sort of goes downhill at some point financially, and then Notley takes off to San Francisco and
Gets drunk in a bar.
shoots himself. They're like, it's like
So it
one
is-
after the other. These
I mean,
stories,
it-
they keep coming, and you're just thinking, my gosh, no, thank you.
It was a real hard scrabble life, I
Yeah.
think. It just was.
And then we looked at the diaries of Sam Trotter post this event, where he's working down at Big Sur, and he's logging what he does every day. And it's woke up, got my mule, went out, and he's building roads with a pick and a shovel by himself. All day, and he just talks about it every day. He's logging it because he thinks he's going to charge somebody that he's building the road for. It's really bizarre. Well, it's not bizarre. It's just then, I guess, whatever then was.
Did Trotter leave a family in the Midwest?
No, but he was engaged, I think,
Yeah.
when he left.
Yes, he was engaged.
We want to hear the stories.
Yeah, don't we all? But there, what it is? It's this
interesting-
weird history thing where are they stories and they're real? Are they real or are they not real? Sylvia tells one story, you read in books other stories, and
But
we get lost in this
for us,
history fog.
Yeah, the fog of history. But the really, you can read a lot about Sam Trotter. If you're interested in Sam Trotter, there are the stories out there. But if you want to know about Adelaide, you've pretty much found out what there is known about her right now. Sylvia has some of her early school work and a few postcards and things, but there just isn't. She was the one who said on the phone to me, she said, I don't even know the color of her eyes. I can't find out anything about my grandmother. So it's the tragedy for me is that in all of the writing about Sam Trotter, that she just fades away. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted, even in her obituary, even when they were talking about her, she was always wife of Sam Trotter, sent to the insane asylum.
And let's emphasize, her youngest sons did not know the story as old men. Bizarre, isn't it? I always get nervous showing a 25-minute movie and then talking for 40 minutes.
Yeah, so-
It always seems like there's a bit of an imbalance. So can we just end? I just want to read something to you.
And then if you have any questions,
we'll
definitely
talk
ask
later.
away.
But we spent a lot of time in the fog down in Big Sur, and we spent a lot of time collecting information about fog. We've got binders at home and binders here, and it's just fun. We just enjoy it. And we come across this, which I think is the way we like to end it, right? Can I read it?
You can.
Recent psychiatric and medical research by Isaac Marks and Randolph Ness from London and University of Michigan, 1994, suggests that anxiety is heightened in the dark or in situations where you cannot see. They argue that that is a natural evolutionary development of our brain. When faced with darkness or situations of non-seeing, those humans whose brains filled them with anxiety and fear from the things that threatened them, like predators, during the darkness survived. Those humans who had brains that did not fear the darkness and predators did not survive. So this evolutionary product, these people argue, still lingers in our brains today. We fear the darkness in the night and perhaps the fog because our brains naturally react to that condition. Instead of fearing the predators, our brains automatically fill that slot with whatever we can construct from our own lives to produce the anxiety that in the past helped us to survive. Does that make sense? Now we might feel anxiety in the fog because we irrationally but naturally fear whatever we can bring up in our brains, same as the dark. What we fear isn't out there anymore. What we fear is our own thoughts, they argue. And then I say we fear ourselves. It may be a little too personal. But with that, we kind of put that one over here and didn't look at it for a while. And on that happy note, who stole my coin?
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thanks everybody for coming.
Hiking in a whiteout, with snow on the ground and fog in the air.
Yeah.